is the 14th session of the Emotional Harmony Seminar. And we're going to discuss the subject of self-acceptance. We've spoken for 2 weeks now on the subject of love for other persons, the obstacles towards love, and then what we can do to open our hearts to other persons, even in situations where in the past it was difficult for us to keep our heart open. And I think one basic realization is that a prerequisite to being able to love others in a continuous and unconditional way is to have a loving relationship with ourselves. When our self-acceptance is intimidated, or our self-esteem is intimidated, then we usually close off to other persons. So let's discuss today the importance of self-acceptance. What happens when we don't accept ourselves? What are the effects of not accepting ourselves? That automatically creates an inner division, an inner conflict in which one part of ourselves is against another part of ourselves. The non-self-acceptance requires two selves, the self which is not accepting and the self which is not accepted. So immediately, automatically, there's a split within us. And this split causes a blockage of energy, a blockage of emotional flow, and it gradually leads to various illnesses, physical and emotional. Let's make an analogy between not accepting ourselves and not accepting someone else. When we don't accept another person, when we don't love another person, we don't wish for his betterment, for his evolution, for his success. We don't desire the greatest good for that person. And the same is true when we don't accept ourselves. Subconsciously, we don't desire the greatest good for our own selves. What kind of effect does that have? One effect is self-destructive habits. If we analyze the psychology of a person who becomes addicted to cigarettes, to alcohol, to narcotics, to tranquilizers, or to food, or whatever it may be, we will see that this is the psychology of this person. Deep in his psychological structure, there is a rejection of himself, which is causing him to destroy himself with these self-destructive mechanisms. So the first result of not accepting ourselves is that we are much more vulnerable towards self-destructive mechanisms. The second is that it's more difficult for a person who doesn't have self-acceptance to develop healthy habits, such as eating properly, exercising daily, doing relaxation or meditation, because there is an automatic resistance towards whatever may improve our reality. Because there is this belief that I do not deserve a beautiful reality. I do not deserve a better reality than the reality that I'm experiencing at this moment. And I have seen people who have this non-self-acceptance. Whenever things start going very well, a relationship, for example, or their health, or their work situation, find subconscious ways to destroy that. Because that would change the thought form, that would change the reality and the basic belief that I do not deserve something wonderful, something harmonious, something beautiful, something good in my life. Another effect is something which I mentioned just now, and that is that it causes us to undermine our relationships. So when I do not believe that I'm worthy of love, then I cannot feel the love that people have for me, it's much more easily I become upset and angry and hurt with small things which people may do, which may have nothing to do with me, but I easily feel rejection because I myself doubt my self-worth. With this mechanism of easily feeling rejected, I'm a difficult person in this relationship, and gradually the other person may actually reject me. I may actually create the reality which I already fear within me, because this doubt, this self-doubt about myself causes me to be very irritable and easily negative in this relationship. And the other mechanism is something we have spoken about in the past, and that is that when we doubt whether the other person loves us, we tend to test his love or her love. And sometimes they don't pass the test. That is, we manage to become negative enough to push them away from us. Another area in which this lack of self-acceptance undermines our attempts is in the professional area, in our work aspect of our lives, which may cause us, for example, not to complete our schooling, or may cause us not to be able to perform successfully in our professional life, because if we are successful, this would mean that we would have to change our thought forms. We would have to change the belief about ourselves that we are not acceptable, that we are not worthy. And so we prefer not to succeed, and we find ways of undermining our success. Also, it would prevent us from developing certain abilities and talents. Perhaps the most important effect, however, is that it does not allow us to love others unconditionally, because when I need others' approval or certain kinds of behavior from other persons in order to feel that I am worthy, in order to feel my self-esteem, because my own self-esteem is not high enough, then it's very difficult for me to love that person and to feel unity with that person when he does something or does not do something which causes me to feel doubt about myself. And so it's difficult for me to love persons when I don't love myself. Otherwise, I love them when they give me affirmation, and I become negative towards them when they don't give me affirmation. And of course, this also affects our health. All of these negative emotions gradually reduce the power of the immune system, and we are more open to psychosomatic illnesses. So a positive self-image is very important for health, for harmonious relationships, for success, and for happiness in general in our lives. Now, what are the conditions which we have learned to put on our self-love, on our self-acceptance? There's a questionnaire which I had given you. Where is the questionnaire? Thank you. Okay, let's look at this questionnaire. In which situations do you lose your sense of self-love, self-worth, self-esteem, or self-acceptance? You might feel negative feelings such as alienation from self or others, fear, insecurity, negativity, discomfort, aversion, repulsion, anxiety, bitterness, anger, hate, guilt, shame, worry, disillusionment with self or others, frustration, jealousy, envy, or any other unpleasant emotion. Note down some of the feelings which you might have in the following situations. Let's look at these prerequisites which are often programmed into our subconscious mind as children. When others ask you for help and you do not say yes or you do not respond. So there is a programming within us that in order for me to be the good boy or the good girl, I have to say yes to whatever people ask from me. Now, my personal belief is that I would like to manage my life in a way so as to be able to say yes most of the time. I believe in saying yes and helping people. But there will be moments when you can't say yes. When either because that which they're asking just cannot be done, or that which they're asking would be harmful to them, because it's just a way of them seeking other persons to satisfy their needs rather than for them they themselves to grow and evolve in that way. Or they may ask us to do something which we consider unethical and something which we cannot do. So there may be moments in which we have to say, I can't do that, or I will not do that, or I don't want to do that. And if we can maintain our sense of self-acceptance and self-esteem in those situations in which we cannot respond to requests of other persons. Each person will have to look into himself here to see if you have difficulty in these situations in maintaining your self-acceptance. When you have made a mistake or have failed at some effort, as we mentioned in the discussion about fear, people fear making a mistake more than death. At least that's what they wrote down. Of course, when it comes to the point of death, they may change their mind. But the fact is that more people mentioned having the fear of making a mistake. The mistake, we learn very young, at a very young age, that making a mistake is unacceptable. That you are rejected when you make a mistake. You are considered inferior. And it's not a very pleasant experience for a child to make a mistake and to receive the kind of feedback that he receives from parents and teachers when he does make a mistake. So the mistake becomes a danger sign. And we learn to do to ourselves what our parents and teachers did to us as children. We adopt that voice. And we have the voice of the parent and the voice of the teacher within our own mind, and no one else has to reject us for our mistakes anymore, because we ourselves find mistakes unacceptable. So look into yourselves and see, can you accept yourselves when you make a mistake? And is there a difference? Check that out. Is there a difference when you make a mistake which no one sees, and when you make a mistake which everyone sees? I mean, is the mistake unacceptable as it is, or is it unacceptable because someone sees it? So look into that so that we can discuss that also. When others are more able than you at certain tasks or concerning certain qualities, such as intelligence, artistic ability, speech, sports, cooking, professional success, their children's success, making friends, or even disciplines, how do we feel about ourselves, and how do we feel about this person? So, do we tend to compare ourselves? And when we're in the company of persons who are more intelligent or more capable, do we feel inferior? Do we reject ourselves? Is our self-esteem lowered? And when we are with people who have less ability, do we feel proud and superior? Let's look at this tendency of comparing ourselves and determining our self-worth in relationship to others. There are three basic ways. Although there is a large list of things here, there are three basic ways in which we measure our self-worth. The one is in comparison to others. The other is in relationship to other persons' opinions about us. And the third is in relationship to the result of our efforts. there are three basic factors. What other people think about me, that affects to a great deal what I think about myself. How I compare to others affects to a great deal how I feel about myself. And whether I'm able to achieve the results that I desire in my efforts, professionally, socially, in personal relationships, in the spiritual effort that I'm making on the spiritual path, the same thing happens. I begin to evaluate myself and reject myself because I'm not proceeding spiritually, or I'm not proceeding professionally, or I'm not able to find a husband or a wife. And then we extend that and we evaluate ourselves in terms of our children's success and our children's ability to manifest results. It doesn't remain with us, and we're beginning to evaluate ourselves through other persons connected with us. So look at number 3, and whether you have a tendency to compare yourself to others and to demean yourself when you do so, and in relationship to what? Appearance, money, intelligence, information. Where are you competing? Where have you learned to compete with others for your self-worth? Check that one out. 4. When others attract more attention, esteem, and respect in a group situation. I remember when I was a young adolescent, and for all my adolescent years, I was what was called a wallflower at parties. I felt very shy and very self-conscious and self-rejecting. And that became a vicious circle. I would just sit on the sidelines. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was afraid to talk to anyone. And the more I sat there and the more I saw everyone else interacting, the more separate I felt, and the more self-rejection I had. And it became a vicious circle. So how do you feel when you're in a group situation and no one's paying attention to you? Everyone's paying attention to someone else. Does that create feelings of self-rejection? You lose your self-esteem. I did. 5. When others have offered more to you than you have offered to them. Sometimes we compete in offering also. You know, they've invited us 5 times to dinner. We've invited them only 4 times to dinner. We've got to invite them one more time. Or they gave us a bottle of wine at Christmas. We have to give them now something else. Not to have taken more, because he who gives more is on top. It's another form of competition. And he who has given less is less. So it's another social game that we play. Are we playing this game? Do we need to give more than we take? There's nothing wrong with giving more. I believe in giving as much as we can, living in a very simple way, without needing money, without needing time for ourselves or personal possessions. I mean, it's a way of life which I believe in, which I live. But it's one thing to do that because we believe in that, and it's another thing to do it because then we feel that we are on top in this relationship. And that's why a number of people can't accept. Sometimes people cannot accept for egotistical reasons, because accepting means allowing the other to be in a higher state, on a higher level than myself. And a number of people have difficulty even when they're ill accepting help, because that lowers their ego, lowers their self-esteem. So here the thought form is that I must not need. Needing lowers my self-esteem. I must be strong. Only if I am strong and not needing of others am I worthy, or can I accept myself. Then there's number 6, when you are not perfect. Some people have been programmed in their childhood years that they have to be perfect. If someone receives this thought form, this subconscious belief, it can be very tiring, and sometimes it can even lead to a nervous breakdown. And it can also lead to, how do we say emanacy this? Obsessive thoughts and obsessive actions. That is, A person who has to be perfect may clean the same floor 5 or 6 times, or lock the same door 15 times. I mean, these are extreme cases, but I've seen them because there's doubt. Maybe it's not perfect. And it leads to obsessive behavior, that I have to be absolutely perfect. My house has to be absolutely clean, or my dress absolutely perfect, or my work situation, my professional, the result of my professional actions. Everything has to be perfect in order for me to be worthy. If there is anything in there that's not perfect, I'm not acceptable. So this is a real toughie. This is very difficult for this kind of person to be accepting of himself, because it's very difficult to be perfect. When others criticize us, can we feel the same self-acceptance, the same self-respect and self-esteem when others are criticizing us? When they're telling us that we're not okay, that we've made mistakes, that we are wrong, or that we're not good persons? Can we accept this kind of message from another person and retain our self-acceptance? Now, retaining our self-acceptance in this case does not mean that I'm not hearing the other person. And it does not mean that I believe that I cannot have made a mistake. It just means that I believe that I'm acceptable even when I make mistakes. So believing that I'm acceptable does not say, I'm perfect, don't tell me my faults, I have nothing to hear, I have nothing to change. It doesn't mean that. It means that I recognize myself as a soul in the process of evolution. And as a soul in the process of evolution, I have many things to improve about myself. And I make many mistakes since I'm not enlightened. But that does not mean that I'm not acceptable and that I'm not worthy of love and acceptance from other persons. So we have a number of cards outside. And one of those cards says, I'm not perfect, but I deserve to be loved. So when we say that we can receive criticism from other persons, it doesn't mean that we ignore the criticism. It means we listen to it, we try to see what we can improve in ourselves, but we don't start feeling rejection towards ourselves. We don't lose our self-esteem. Fine, thank you for the criticism. I will look into it, and I'm very grateful for the help you've given me. And we'll make the necessary changes if changes need to be made. If they don't need to be made, if his criticism is simply a product of his own subconscious programming and his own negativity, again, I haven't lost anything because he does not believe in me. As long as I believe in myself and accept myself. When others do not agree with you, some people have the need to have people, all the persons around them, especially important persons to them, agree with them. And that is the result of the fact that they are not sure of themselves. That is, by your agreeing with me, you affirm that I am right. And I believe that most fanatic people, that is, people that are fanatic politically or religiously, probably doubt themselves deep inside. Otherwise, they wouldn't have so much need to change everyone else's belief to believe themselves. That is, I suspect that this religious and political fanaticism comes from a basic cause of self-doubt. Otherwise, I can't understand why anyone would try to force someone else to believe what he believes. When others are able to manipulate you, when you find that people have told you lies, or people have cheated you, or people have managed to trick you out of your money, or out of your house, or out of something important, can you continue accepting yourselves, or do you feel like a fool? So, can we continue feeling our self-esteem? I mean, who has lost here in reality when someone steals from us or cheats us? Only the person who does that. We don't lose anything. We can't lose anything because nothing belongs to us in the first place. We come here nude and we're going to leave here nude. Everything else is lent to us by the earth for the temporary period of time that we're here. Everything else is borrowed. Nothing is ours. The earth is like a large lending library in which lends us houses, and it lends us cars, and it lends us money, and it lends us persons and children and spouses, but it takes it all back. None of it is ours, because we're going to leave with all of that. So no one can really take anything from us. He himself is losing by his actions. I don't lose. It doesn't mean that I am not worthy because someone was able to fool me into taking something from me. But I have seen a number of people in the psychology groups feel self-rejection because this has happened. They feel that they are fools, and they lose their self-respect. And then they feel that their lesson is to become suspicious and non-trusting. And that's a shame, because that just leads to greater separation, to greater mistrust in society, which is exactly the opposite direction in which we need to go in order to heal society. Now here's a very difficult one. When you have created pain for others, none of us likes to create pain for someone. And if we have at some point been the stimulus for someone to feel pain, to feel hurt, we automatically feel guilt. We automatically feel unhappy about that, either consciously or subconsciously. I would like to try to make a distinction here, and you'll have to be very careful not to misunderstand this distinction. We have already said that we cannot create the reality of another person, and that another person cannot create our reality. So we cannot actually create pain for a person whose karma or whose life evolutionary process was not destined to experience that pain. So we are not the cause of the pain, but we are the stimulus, just as the other is not the cause of our pain, as we have already understood in the seminar, but is the stimulus. It is our belief system, our previous actions, and the lessons we have come to learn, which is the cause. You remember we have spoken about 3 causes of our reality, and 3 causes also then of the other person's reality. The cause of our reality is our previous actions, our present beliefs, and the lessons we have come to learn in this lifetime. And the same then is true for the other person. The cause of his reality is his past, his present beliefs, and the lessons which he has come to learn in this lifetime. I am not responsible for what he is experiencing. I am, however, responsible for my motives and for my actions. What does that mean? That if I want to harm someone, just the desire to harm him already creates within me a karma, already creates within me the state in which I will have to experience the result of that desire. The desire to harm. That desire to harm which is in me would have to be experienced, the result of that desire would have to be experienced by me, so that I can learn through that. Not as a punishment, but as a learning process. Whether I can manifest that harm or not depends on what the karma of the other person is. I may desire it, and that's enough for me. That's already, I will have to experience that. But I cannot do it to the other person if it's not destined to happen to him. Because nothing can happen to him which is not his own creation. So the responsibility that we have is not to what happened to the other person, because that, if it didn't happen through us, it would have happened through someone else. The responsibility which we have is towards our motives. What are our motives? We may have wanted to do good to someone, and we may have been the cause of his death, but we're not responsible because the motive was goodness. We may have wanted to do harm to someone, and eventually that may have been the greatest thing that happened to him in his life, and we're still responsible for our desire to harm him. So try to understand that the responsibility has nothing to do with what actually happens to the other person, but has to do with what our motives are. So if our motives are egotistical, then we are responsible for that. And if our motives are love, then we are responsible for that. And we will experience the result of those two motives ourselves. But nothing can happen to the other person which is not of his own creation. We are just actors in the role which he has written. And of course it's very important for us to remember that the same is true for the others, that nothing has ever happened to us which is not our own creation. And the other is just an actor in the life script which we have written. So we can accept ourselves as souls in the process of evolution, even when we have created pain for other persons, realizing that this was a function of our ignorance. And of course, it would be very important in such a situation, once we have realized that, to ask for forgiveness from this person. And if one is a Christian and believes in the sacraments of confession and repentance and Holy Communion, this is also a very positive spiritual and psychological process. It's not only a spiritual process. It is also a psychological process in which I cleanse from my conscious and subconscious mind anything which I believe which is obstructing me from being pure and worthy of God's love. Now the truth is that you can't do anything which makes you unworthy of God's love. But until we can believe that, until that thought form can be well established within us, that it's impossible for me to do something which will prevent God from loving me, until I can believe that 100%, then this process of cleansing is useful, of recognizing what is within me which is preventing me from being the person I would like to be. And this self-analysis is always very useful. It's like self-analysis. What is it within me which I would like not to be there? And then another here is when you are not in harmony with your conscience. I think we already mentioned that. And then complete this phrase in various ways. That I should be an in. In various ways on the back of the sheet. I feel shame, guilt, or self-rejection when. And you can make a list of situations in which you may feel shame, guilt, or self-rejection. There's another prerequisite which some people put on their self-acceptance, and that is they need to do a large quantity of things daily. That is, my self-worth is dependent on how much I do. And so this often also leads to a nervous breakdown because it's never enough. And they need to do more and to do more and to do more and more, because only then can they feel that they are worthy. So my self-worth is a function of the quantity of things that I do, and not so much the quality. The perfectionist has the problem of the quality. That has to be perfect. It may take 3 hours to clean a room, for example. The other person who has the quantity programming may clean 5 houses in the same time. But both of them will eventually end up having a nervous breakdown because neither of them will relax and regenerate their energy. So some are seeking quality, others are seeking quantity. I'd like to speak about now at some ways in which we can accept ourselves more steadily and without so many conditionings. First of all, I'd like to speak about the prerequisite of having a result, of getting a specific result for our efforts. And if I find the pen I can write on this board. That one doesn't have any. Brand new. Now, here we have in the center the soul. Around the soul is the personality. Around the personality is the belief system that is in a certain way, while incarnated, apparently the soul is limited by the personality, and the personality is limited by the belief system. According to the belief system, certain motives, there's a bulging of the belief system in a certain direction. Right? Okay, so certain motives, this is motives, are created. I feel a motive to make money, a motive to raise my children, a motive to grow spiritually, a motive to cook a meal for someone, to draw a painting, or any motive which I may have, to heal someone, to heal myself. The motive leads to effort. And the effort brings about a result. So we have the soul, we have the personality, we have the belief system, we have the motive, we have the effort, and we have the result. How do most people evaluate themselves? Most people evaluate themselves on the effort, but even more importantly, they evaluate themselves based on the other person's opinion of the effort. I'm not satisfied that I like the painting that I have painted. I want to know what you feel about the painting. I'm not satisfied that I like the meal that I have cooked. I want to know what you feel about the meal. You see? And I have self-doubt. I'm not sure about the result. So most people evaluate themselves. And if you don't like the meal, it means you don't like me. And if you don't like the painting, you don't like me. I'm totally identified with my creation. I am what I've created. I am the painting. I am the meal. And so your rejection of that is a rejection of me directly. So most of us evaluate ourselves in a very extended way. That is, the other person's opinion of the result. But that's not enough, because with our subconscious programming, we have our own opinion of the other person's opinion of the result. Because you remember how distorted we see things, and the other person may like it, but we say, you don't like it. You're just telling me that. You're just trying to be nice. So we can't even believe that he likes it. So we have our opinion of his opinion of the result. So we evaluate ourselves in three ways. Our opinion of the result, his opinion of the result, and our opinion of his opinion of the result. How can we really evaluate ourselves? In two ways only. Spiritually, we are this soul and we are divine, and there's no way that we can lose our self-worth. We're not perfect yet in our expression, but our self-worth is to be taken for granted. But if you want to find another method, criteria for self-evaluation, let's evaluate then the motive and the effort, and not the result, and not the other person's opinion of the result, and our opinion of his opinion of the result. So it's like what we heard as children all our childhood years, what they told us, but no one ever believed. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose, but how you play the game. They told us, but no one ever lived it. I mean, they gave us a double message. They told us it didn't matter whether you won or lost, but every time we lost, we didn't get the same love and the same respect. So what is important, if we want to evaluate ourselves in some way, is to evaluate, were my motives pure? Was my effort the greatest effort which I could make at that stage of my evolutionary process? I see many parents who in later years begin to understand their own psychology and the psychology in general of persons differently. And they see how many, quote, mistakes they may have made and feel guilty. And it's wrong. Because they did, at every point of that evolutionary process of raising those children, with the motive of, their motive was always to help that child, and they did what they did with the knowledge that they had. The motive was pure, and the effort was the best they could make. There is no reason for guilt. And this is true for every effort that we make in life. So we should ask only two questions. Were my motives pure? Was my effort the best I could do at that time? Then let me accept myself in this situation. Let me release this guilt. Let me release this self-rejection for this result. And let us begin to let go of all of this attachment to what other persons think. It's very important. Because it's a waste of time. Because if there's 100 people, they will all think something else. So in reality, what am I? And you can please these 10, and the other 10 will be... Again, sometimes you can't please anybody. So just let go of it. Another method that which we have already learned for learning to accept ourselves is doing these affirmations, written affirmations, in which we write on the left-hand side, I love and accept myself in every situation. And on the right-hand side, we write the responses, in which situations we do accept and in which situations we do not. I want to remind you that there were two types of answers or responses to the affirmation, I love and accept myself in every situation. One category was the category based on social programming, not when I make a mistake, not when the others reject me, and this is all social programming. And the other was matters of conscience, not when I say lies, not when I steal, not when I act violently towards my children. So in the first case, first category, we remember that the process of analysis is to understand what is the programming which is causing me not to accept myself in this situation and to get free from that programming. In the second case, when it's a matter of conscience, the question is, what do I believe which causes me to do that even though I do not accept that? I consider it unethical. What is the fear that I have or the need that I have which causes me to repeat actions which I myself do not agree with? So in the first case, we want to get free of the social programming. In the second case, the need which causes me to do things which I myself do not condone. Relaxation with positive thought projection are very useful for the process of developing a new and positive self-image. So relaxing into the alpha state and then creating an image of ourselves with light, feeling a sense of feeling positive feelings for us, seeing ourselves in situations in which in the past we may have lost our self-respect or our self-esteem, able to maintain it in those situations will help us gradually to make that also a conscious reality. Also, very important for the establishing of self-acceptance, self-esteem, is working out the childhood years. Because this self-respect was destroyed usually in the childhood years, sometimes by negative communication from parents and teachers, but other times through our own misinterpretation of what was going on, our own distortion of what was going on. So regressions in which we can transform those childhood experiences, understanding them in a different way, and understanding that I do not lose my self-worth because someone is shouting at me, or because someone is ignoring me, or not giving me love or attention that I need. That's not a reflection of my self-worth. I am worthy of all of that. Attention and love and respect. It's a reflection of the problems of the persons around me. So going back and doing a childhood regression and realizing that over and over again begins to transform those mistaken assumptions which exist in the subconscious mind. Also, very useful for a feeling of inner unity is developing our relationship with God. This is a whole another subject which can be discussed in another day. But ultimately this is our destiny. Because in reality, there is only one being on the earth. It seems that there are many beings, many people and animals and birds and flowers and insects and microbes. But the spiritual truth behind all of these many apparent beings is that there is one being. We seek relationships, what I call horizontal relationships, that is, with other beings on our level, in order to fulfill that emptiness and that doubt which is within us, because we do not feel whole. And in the nature of this planet, that whole nature has divided into male and to female, and it causes a male to desire the female to desire the male, for that completing mechanism. But both of those are within us, both the male and the female. That is, we are souls which don't have a sex. Sex is created, the particular sex of a being is created upon incarnation. It's not inherent in the soul quality. So as we begin to develop this relationship with this being, this one being, this divine being, internally, then we have much less need to take in our horizontal relationships. That is, we can become like transformers which are receiving in a vertical direction, receiving a sense of security, a sense of love, a sense of relationship, a sense of companionship through this relationship with God. And this inner fulfillment, which the person will then feel, allows him in his relationships to give much more without needing to take. And because he needs to take much less, the relationship is much easier. And there is a much greater sense of self-esteem and self-acceptance in those situations. It's developing this relationship. And the one obstacle to this relationship is the feeling of guilt. What is guilt? Guilt is a state of mind in which I feel unworthy of God's grace. The opposite of guilt is grace. I'm either in a state of guilt or I'm in a state of grace. So when I remove from myself the state of guilt, when I get free from this type of thinking of myself as something separate, something unworthy of unity with the divine, and that's why it's called communion. It's to come into union again with, and that's why religion comes from two Latin words, re, which means again, and ligere, which means to unite. Religion is simply a process of reuniting. It is not uniting, it's reuniting. Reuniting with something which we already are, which are with our basic source. So it's very important, this process of self-acceptance, so as to come into the state which we are destined to come into, and that is the state of feeling grace, the state of feeling one with God, one with nature, one with man, in harmony and in union with all things. This is where we are going, and this is why the greatest obstacle to that is fear. Because when I fear and when I feel guilt, I feel separateness, and that separateness creates a state of greater danger and less unity. So self-acceptance, and learning to love ourselves, and learning to feel worthy of others' love, and of God's love, and of this protection, and of living in this universal harmony with all beings, is an essential part of our growth process, an essential part of finding happiness and health and everything else that we want to find in life. I consider that guilt in some cases may be useful simply as a spark for creating the fire of transformation. It is as a spark as to seeing that this is not the way I want to be, and that becomes a mechanism of change. That's useful. Guilt in that case is useful. But guilt as a state of mind, as an identification with myself as something unworthy, is not useful. It's an obstacle in the end to the growth process. So an important aspect of self-acceptance is beginning to accept certain spiritual truths. The spiritual truth that I am not this body and this personality, but that I am a universal, I am an eternal soul in a process of evolution. That I am a creation of the divine, a creation which is not perfected yet, which is in a process of evolution, but the divine has created me because there's no other creator. My parents haven't created me. Parents can't create. They're only vehicles. They are not the source of life. There was a source of life which created them, and there was a source of life which created their parents, and their parents behind them. So my parents are not my creators. My creator is the divine. And to realize that I am a child, I am a creation of the divine, and as a creation of the divine, there is an automatic spiritual self-worth within me, whatever I do, whatever may happen. And of course, it's very important to see all other persons in this way. So today in our group discussion, and for next time, I would like you to try to see in yourselves the situations in which you lose your self-esteem or self-respect or self-love, and then try to find the way in which you're going to begin to re-establish that sense of self-love, and also that we do not lose it so frequently and so easily in our everyday context. Any questions about today's discussion? Yes.
I would like to discuss a little number 10 about the radiation of pain.
Yes.
You said that our responsibility depends on our motives.
Yes.
So,
We're responsible for our motives.
so if our motives are egotistic, that means we create karma.
That's something which will create some results in our life later, yes.
So, but if they are not, it means it does not create.
Creates another kind of result.
Good.
Motives always create results. Yeah, good. Let's call it pleasant and unpleasant. All results are good. Some results are unpleasant. We don't like them, but they are good because they cause us to grow. There is no bad karma, as people say. There is only good karma. There is pleasant and unpleasant karma. We call unpleasant karma bad karma. It's not bad, it's unpleasant, simply. It's good for our evolution.
So if our motives are not egotistic, we will experience pleasant karma.
Pleasant results.
Even if we have created pain.
Even if we have created pain, if our motives were good. And if we have no attachment to the result of the action, then no result is created for us. When we perform an action and we desire no specific result from that action, you may want to help someone, but you have no specific attachment to what result that effort may have. Or you may make an effort to create something, and you have no attachment to the result of that effort, any effort that you make. That you are free from attachment to the result. You can accept this result and that result and another result because you have total faith in the divine plan. So it means acting because you believe that this is a worthwhile action, that this may help humanity, but you have no attachment to what the result will be. When there is no attachment to the result, then this does not create a further an event which I have to experience later on.
If someone is in love, but I'm not.
Yes.
So he makes a proposal, I deny.
Yes.
But this means that in the future I will experience the same.
Maybe, maybe not. Because you do not desire any harm for this person.
Yes.
You don't. You do or don't? You don't.
No, I don't.
Yes. You don't want him to be unhappy.
But he is.
Yes, but you're not the creator.
I'm not the creator.
No. You're the stimulus. You're responsible only for your motives. You can't. If there are 10 men that want you, can you marry all the 10 of them? Someone's going to be left out. You're responsible only for your motives, nothing else.
Pain is created for the other.
He creates his pain by his attachment, by his belief that he must have you to be happy.
So that means that I don't have to experience the same pain.
No.
But an action always has a result. I mean, if I have created pain,
The motives have results, not
if
actions.
my motives are good,
Yes.
I will have to experience the same.
Not necessarily. He may be using you in this life to learn that lesson. The moment that you have no rejection for him, that you do not desire for him to be unhappy, you have no responsibility. I mean, you can't marry every person that wants to be with you.
No, it was just an example. I mean that when pain is created on someone else, you have to experience the same because this is...
But you're not the cause. It's not your motive to create pain. Try to make the distinction between motive and action. Every action does not have a result. Every motive creates a result for you. Not every action.
Then you said thought.
Huh?
For the thought,
Yes?
it's the same.
Yes.
Everyone has many thoughts.
Yes.
You cannot experience, for example, an unpleasant karma for a thought you made.
It depends on the intensity of that thought. If it's just a thought which passes through our mind, like thousands of silly thoughts, no. But if it's a thought which is intensely in your mind for a period of time, and you want to do something, you want to harm someone, or even help someone, even if that does not become manifest as a result, there will be a result of that, because it becomes a thought form in your causal body.
You mean if it's a constant for...
Yes, if it has some intensity and duration. The more intensity and the more duration, the more the effect. If it's just a passing thought, it doesn't have.
Everyone has thought of killing something. But this does not create.
Yeah, it has to be more intense than that. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm a bit confused between the precise meanings of self-love, self-worth, self-esteem,
self-acceptance. To accept someone is to feel okay with that person in all the aspects of that person. It is acceptable. It is okay. It doesn't create problem for me. To love something is to feel happiness with that person's existence.
self-worth and self-esteem.
It means that it's a difficult question, because the sense of worth already has within it the doubt of self-worth. Understand what I mean? It's this eating of the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's what caused us to get out of the Garden of Eden. And it's just biting this fruit that it's possible for me not to be worthy. And that there is something that can separate me. And so, and as we mentioned, we tend to evaluate that in terms of our relationship to others, whether we're worthy. There are two questions. Am I worthy in relationship to others? Is the one question. And the other question is, am I worthy of God's love? Is another question. And then when we say, am I worthy of what? Worthy of money, worthy of happiness, worthy of health. You see, it's being worthy. We say this is worth 10 drachmas. This person is worth having something. He's worth having health. He's worth having happiness. He's worth having relationships, happy relationships. In a sense, so being worthy means that you are able to have some things. You have some rights from life. You have the right to have something, happiness or health or relationships from life. Yeah, it's about the same thing. Any other questions?
Another question was something about what you said before. The teachers say to the children, when Lila came from school the other day, and she said that her preschool teacher tells them already that when they go to the big school, which is the primary school, when they do a mistake or when they do something very naughty, then the teacher is just going to kick them out of the class and just label them as bad. So she said to me already, I don't want to go to school. She's very fearful.
It's a shame. It's a big shame.
She's very smart. She really asks questions. She wants to know. She knows how to, spell and everything already. But just the idea that she'll go to a school like that just frightens me.
It's a shame. That's why we have to start making new schools. Okay, shall we do our positive thought projection? No, it's okay. Okay, sit in a straight position. Let your eyes be closed. And begin focusing on the breath. Breathing more slowly and deeply. Using the 3 muscles of breathing, the abdomen, the ribs, and the chest. Now take a deep inhalation, hold your breath, focus on the forehead, and exhale, imagining the number 3 times in the forehead. Inhale deeply again, and hold the breath. Focus on the forehead, and then exhale, imagining the number 2 3 times. Inhale again, and hold the breath. Focus on the forehead. And as you exhale, imagine the number 1 3 times. Now let's check out the body. Allow the muscles of the legs to be relaxed. Allow the abdominal muscles to relax. Allow the shoulders to fall backwards, relaxing. The cheeks relax. The eyes. The forehead. Allow the forehead to relax. And with each number, you feel your mind sinking more deeply into the center of your being. Begin sinking now. 10, 9, falling inwardly. 8, 7, 6, 5, falling, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring to your mind the being towards which you have felt the greatest opening of love. Remember a moment in your life in which you felt the greatest opening of love for another being. Allow yourself to recreate those feelings of caring, of happiness, of affection, of gratitude. Now the image of that person, that being, begins to dissolve. And another person from your daily life appears in your mind. And you maintain the same opening, the same degree of love and caring for this person who comes into your mind now. Feel the same opening. same caring. And that image dissolves, and another person appears in your mind. You maintain the same feelings of openness and love for him. Now, bring your own body and your own personality into focus. And feel the same love and caring towards your own body and personality. Now, bring into mind a person with whom you have difficulty feeling unity, and open yourself to him, to her, the same feelings of love. So now, bring God into your mind. Focus on God in the way which you imagine God to be. And feel it opening towards divine being. And feel that you are receiving light and grace through that opening in your heart and mind. I will count from 1 to 5, and with each number we will rise in consciousness, and at 5 we will open our eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, Okay, before we have our group meetings, are there any questions? Any questions before we break up? Okay. Because Katie is not here today,